Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Draft Room. This is the NFL Draft Podcast of the Packernet Podcast Network. So here's what I think we're going to do, because, I mean, it's still relatively early, but I have the other podcast to try to get done, and I got to get this up. I kind of thought this would happen. It's a little too early to even decide if there's enough news and notes today. Let's do Mock Draft Monday today, and then we'll pick up on some of the news from the Combine tomorrow, depending on how much there even is in the first day. We shall see. I mean, just about everybody's there right now. I'm seeing a handful of things, but I'm not going to wait around until 2-3 o'clock and then decide if I'm going to get started. So I had a thought for today. So 2 weeks ago, we did a normal first-round mock draft. Last week, I believe, we did a second-round mock draft. This week, with a twist, I want to try to do kind of like a third-round mock draft. And the twist is this. As I've mentioned before, we've got a group, NFL Mock Draft, NFL Draft Fanatics, over at Facebook.com/groups/mock drafts. We got 30,000 members in there, very, very active, dropping their mock drafts. So what I thought we would do is hopefully I can find enough to where this works. But I want to go through and have the first two picks be from people that did mock drafts. So, for example, I'll grab, this one, the Dallas Cowboys pick Sonny Styles and Dylan Thieneman. Now, this isn't going to be super legit insofar as it would be like an actual 3-round mock draft, because there's going to be a lot of repeating. The point isn't to make it exactly that. The point is each pick is kind of independent, so that the third round is kind of a legit round. The first 2 rounds are kind of just backstory to how we make our pick in the third round. So again, the third round is a real round with 1 pick each, and you can't duplicate players and all that kind of stuff. The first 2 rounds, there could be 3 Dylan Thienemans drafted in the second round. Doesn't matter. We're not keeping track of that. So as always, these things tend to take quite a long period of time, so I don't want to take any more time than is necessary. So let's get started with the first pick in the third round. At pick 65 is the Arizona Cardinals. So the first mock draft comes via Jack Carter. Posted his on the 18th. He had at pick 18, Caleb Lomu, offensive tackle out of Utah. At pick 34, R. Mason Thomas, edge rusher out of Oklahoma. At 58, Jeremy Bernard, wide receiver out of Alabama. And that brings us to pick 66. Actually, 65. He did some trades, but whatever. 65. And I tell you what, I know it's not a great year for it, and I'm sure a lot of Cardinals fans feel like we're either going to go for it or not, but somebody's got to grab these guys, and it's probably our biggest need. So with the 65th pick, the Arizona Cardinals select Garrett Nussmeier, quarterback out of LSU. But I think Nussmeier, the biggest couple issues, number one, 24 years old. Number two, he's kind of seen as having limited tools. Doesn't have a strong arm, doesn't have a big build. Kind of just, mediocre across the board. But as a quarterback, I think it's pretty well established that he's a talented guy. It's just a question of, can he overcome all that other stuff, which is why, for example, guys like Brock Purdy are used as comps for him. Next up, we got a mock from NFL Titans Updates and Fantasy News Fans. They posted 2 side-by-sides to ask which one people liked the best, but in both cases, they went edge rusher and then wide receiver, Ruben Bain and Chris Bell, and then David Bailey and Omar Cooper Jr. So, edge wide receiver is what we're dealing with. From where I'm sitting, L'Jarius Sneed is a terrible CB1, and I'm assuming that's who they believe is CB1. I couldn't even tell you. They just have really, really bad corners across the board. In nickel, they've got Marcus Harris, who is a 6th-round pick that seemed, it's hard to tell. He's a 6th-round pick. He played like 4 or 5 games. So it's bad. I mean, the DB situation in general is really bad. Amani Hooker had a terrible year. Xavier Woods is going to be 31 years old, is not really super great, but corner is definitely the biggest need here. So we're going to be drafting Davison Igbinosun, cornerback out of Ohio State. At 67, we've got the Raiders. Dom Polk posted his mock. He's got Fernando Mendoza going number 1. Max, come on now, I got this. Iheanacho, right, I think, going at 36. And I'm going to focus on the news that's been going on lately with Max Crosby. This is 2 years in a row now we've heard about Max Crosby potentially leaving. Whether or not a deal gets done or he gets franchise tagged or whatever the situation is, it does not feel like this is a long-term deal with Max Crosby. And even if it is, we don't really have anybody else on the team to help him. So we got our quarterback. We got a guy to help him. Certainly could add a wide receiver, but I think we need to focus a little bit on this edge situation. And so we'll be drafting Joshua Josephs, edge rusher out of Tennessee. At 68, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. Mock draft via William Darrell Howard. He had them taking edge and then cornerback. And we do have 2 picks in this round, just as a little side note. We've hammered defense a little bit. I think offense is certainly something that needs to be taken into consideration, especially right tackle with Lane Johnson's situation. Wide receiver with A.J. Brown being speculated as potentially moving on. That would leave us with 1 capable guy. Tight end, I think, is legitimately something to consider. Dallas Goedert is 31. He's been declining since 2021. But I think we'll focus first and foremost on our bread and butter, which is the trenches, and draft with the 68th pick, Caleb Tiernan, offensive tackle out of Northwestern. He's played primarily left tackle. We'll have to switch him over to the other side. There aren't a lot of right tackle ready guys in this range. Isaiah World is the next one up. He's quite a ways down on the list and is also a left tackle. Next up is the Houston Texans. The Texans have 3 selections in the first 2 rounds, a first and 2 seconds. And so we have here Lee Hunter, defensive tackle out of Texas Tech. Then Chase Besantis, guard, Texas A&M. And then Oscar Delp, tight end out of Georgia. So, my biggest concern, obviously, is going to be our quarterback situation with Stroud. We got to get him back on track. We've got Nico and Tank Dell. It should be a good group. We added a tight end already, and we added 1 guard. I think we need some more help on offense. It should come in the form of either offensive line or possibly a running back. But right now at center, we have Jake Andrews, who's a 4th-round pick. 2023, when he was drafted, he really didn't play. 2024, he did not play. 2025, he played and was not very good. So, with the 69th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans will select Connor Lew, offensive center out of Auburn. Next up is the Cleveland Browns. They also have 3 picks prior to the 3rd round. And Jake Kavanaugh drafted Spencer Fano, Vanga Ioane, and Monroe Freeling. So 3 offensive linemen. I get it. I do. And despite going all offense, I'm not looking at defense. I'm still looking at offense because we need to get our quarterback some help. Outside of the offensive line, I'm looking at wide receiver. And so at pick 70, the Cleveland Browns select Jeremy Bernard, wide receiver, Alabama. For Washington, it's pretty simple because they just have 1 first-round pick prior to their 3rd-round pick. And so I will go with Trevor Davis here. He has at 7 Washington picking Jordan Tyson, wide receiver out of Arizona State. They've got quite a bit of problems here. Offensive line help would be great. Tight end help would be great. Running back help would be great. Corner is a desperate, desperate need. I think I just saw Marshawn Lattimore is likely to be cut, which isn't a major loss because he's bad, but it just kind of signals how bad the situation is. They absolutely need defensive tackle help. They need edge help. linebacker help for sure, especially considering Bobby Wagner, who is one of the best players on their team, is going to be 36 years old, and their safeties suck. So I think I'm going to lean toward premier players at top of the board. This might be a bit of a reach that he gets there, but whatever. We got a lot of flexibility. We'll select Derek Moore, edge rusher out of Michigan. For the Cincinnati Bengals, we've got Tim Weaver. He has them taking defensive tackle Peter Woods in the first round, followed by Cassius Howell, edge rusher, Texas A&M, in the second round. Another team that has a lot of needs. Obviously, we've hammered the defensive line. Offense, I mean, I'm kind of torn here because offensive line is obviously a big deal. But I think linebacker is our biggest weakness on the team, and there's a guy that's, again, maybe a reach, but we'll call it top of the board. And so I'm going to have them selecting Josiah Trotter, linebacker out of Missouri. Right now, their linebackers via PFF, out of 88 linebackers, rank 82nd, 85th, and 88th. I promise you, there is not a worse group of linebackers in the NFL. The Saints at pick 8 took running back Jeremiah Love, and at 42, offensive guard Emmanuel Pregnon. At pick 73, another interior offensive lineman wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Corner, kind of reminiscent of the Packers situation, maybe slightly better, where they got one solid corner in Kool-Aid and then a couple guys, is an option. But I think, wait a minute. Defensive line in general is going to be the biggest need. Chase Young is pretty solid. So either getting a number 2 or defensive tackle, which does seem to be the biggest need. I think I'm just going to go that way. And so I'll have them taking Darrell Jackson Jr., defensive tackle out of Florida State. Kansas City Chiefs next up on the clock have picks 9 and 40. They did a little bit of trading around, but that's all right. Let's just say they took a defensive tackle at 9, and then at 40 took cornerback Brandon Cisse, leaving us with some needs definitely on the offensive side. Ideally, I'd like to find a new right tackle. Again, there's not a ton. I think our best option at this point, and actually I think that's what I'm going to do. I don't know if the consensus is to kick him inside, but we're going to say it's not. With the 74th pick, the Kansas City Chiefs select Brian Parker, offensive tackle, Duke. At 6'5", 305, I think there's going to be, like with every offensive tackle conversations, but he did play almost exclusively right tackle, especially the last 3 years, almost 2,000 snaps compared to 379 at left tackle and none on the interior. The Dolphins by Brian Custer. Again, everybody's got to do trades. Nobody can sit still. This is why doing group mocks would be hilarious, because everybody just wants to trade up 1,000 times, and nobody's going to end up doing the trades. Come on, man. Let me trade up. No, let me trade up. So I'll pick 2 of their 3 here. In the first round, let's say they took offensive tackle Caleb Lomu. I think that still works at 11. Next actual pick is 43, so they took offensive guard Chase Bisontis. So that still works out. They definitely need a lot of help on the offensive line. They need arguably 4 of 5 spots. So again, they take a tackle and a guard, leaving us at pick 75 with, let's see, I mean, obviously there's rumors about what they'll do in free agency, but we need a quarterback, we need wide receivers, we need defensive tackle, we need edge, probably need corner. Rasul had a good year last year, but that was probably a fluke, and he's also getting up in age at 30 years old. So, again, I think when you need a lot of stuff, it's better to just swing for the top premier player that you can find, and in this case, I'm going to have them selecting Romello Height, edge rusher out of Texas Tech. 3 trench players for the Miami Dolphins, I think, is a pretty good start for them. And then the final pick before we take a break here, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have 1 billion picks. This is just their 3rd pick so far in the draft, but they have 3 third-round picks, so we'll be seeing them 2 more times. They also have 2 fourth-round picks, a 5th, 2 sixths, and 2 sevenths. So they have so far 12 picks. Definitely a candidate to be moving up in the draft. But the Pittsburgh Steelers mock will come by way of Gerald Prisby. He has them taking first defensive tackle Caleb Banks, followed by cornerback Davison Igbinosun. I would say we need to focus on finding a replacement quarterback at some point. However, we've done nothing to even help our offense to this point. And so to defend against somewhat of a mutiny, we will select Antonio Williams, wide receiver, Clemson. Alrighty. So we'll do another, we'll do in 12, 12, and 12 because there's 36 picks in the third round. Come back and start this thing off with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we got Blake Swan here. He has, in the first round, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking R. Mason Thomas, edge rusher out of Oklahoma, followed by Josiah Trotter, linebacker out of Missouri, so edge and linebacker. I think we still have a pretty big need on the interior here. Kalijah Kancey has been a terrible pick in the first round, absolutely awful. And then Logan Hall, who was a second-round pick, is also really not very good. In year 4, he did have his best year. He's gotten better every single year, but it's been 36, 52, 59, and 67. So in 4 years, he just got up to above average. We got to get some help in there. So obviously, we have a very specific type of defensive tackle available for most of this class. We'll take what we got, and that is going to be Dominique Orange, defensive tackle out of Iowa State. Colts do not have a first-round pick, but they do have a pick in the second round at pick 47. He had him taking Max Ihanachor, offensive tackle. Colts, as I've said, they do have a pretty solid offensive line. I know a lot of things started to go downhill, so I don't know how much of this is relatively fake. But, I mean, just from a grade standpoint, this is one of the cleanest teams in the entire NFL. I think that a couple things I would look at, defensive line, especially interior, with DeForest Buckner being 32 years old. They did add Latu, who was fantastic. Kwity Paye, a little bit iffy. So, I think we're going to go bang for our buck here and draft Danny Dennis Sutton, edge rusher out of Penn State. The Falcons mock was done by Jeff Kersey. It was done before Trinidad decided to go back. They only have one pick before the third round, so we'll just say that they got themselves a quarterback, whoever that may be. And looking at the way things are here, we need either defensive line or corner. Edge is the biggest need. Really nobody with that edge coming off until 96, which would be a late third-round pick if we wanted to reach here. Defensive tackle, I think, is largely the same. There's basically nobody left. However, the other really big need that we have, unless we wanted to provide our quarterback some help, but I think we're pretty solid on that side, would be corner. And we do have corner options. So, with the 79th pick, the Atlanta Falcons select Malik Muhammad, cornerback, Texas. The other thing I like doing, another thing I like about doing this is, you know, when you have a team that you're a fan of, let's say, for example, Green Bay, when you get to the third round, you kind of just grab whoever you want. I mean, if you're using a mock draft simulator, obviously sometimes these guys are gone, but you have a lot of leverage. It's much more interesting with something like this, where it's, you know, well, you can't because somebody just took him. You're not the only human being doing the mock that likes that guy. The Baltimore Ravens, mock draft by Tim Weaver, has at 14 them selecting Mansour Delane, and then at 45 Lee Hunter, defensive tackle. Again, edge would be very, very nice at this point. I think we did corner and defensive tackle already, but the one that stands out as a massive need here, we have two really solid tackles and a good center. Our left tackle is very old, but we need guards for sure. And so I'm going to have the Baltimore Ravens select, and it feels like a Baltimore Ravens-y guy. 6'4", 330-pound right guard Keelan Rutledge out of Georgia Tech. For the Jaguars, it's another team with a bunch of picks. They have no first, but they have 3 third-round picks, so this is their first of 3. In the second round, the Jaguars selected cornerback D'Angelo Pons out of Indiana. Plenty of directions we can go, but some of the positions that are lesser popular are starting to fall a little bit. And one of those positions is safety. The Jaguars absolutely do need some safety help, so I'm going to have them drafting Kamari Ramsey, safety out of USC. Next up, the Minnesota Vikings, and I think we just had somebody do this exact mock draft for a different team. At 18, Mansour Delane, cornerback out of LSU, followed by Lee Hunter, defensive tackle out of Texas Tech. Another position that is starting to accumulate some value here is running back. The Vikings really do not have very good running back options. And with 2 defensive picks, I think they could use a little bit of help, especially trying to get a run game going to complement this nothing passing offense. And so the Minnesota Vikings at whatever pick we're at will select Jonah Coleman, running back, Washington. Next up is the Carolina Panthers, just posted a little while ago. I just approved this. Jack Carter posted this one. Again, a bunch of different trades to try to force 3 picks in here. I'll just select 2 of them. We'll go with the top 2, edge rusher TJ Parker and Kristen Miller, defensive tackle. We'll ignore, again, the third one because of the trades. So they've got a bunch of defensive tackle help here. As far as needs, well, I think I know what we're going to do, but we need linebacker help. Corner, we do have a good corner, but we could use a little bit more help there. Tight end, arguably safety, I don't know. But with the 83rd pick, Carolina Panthers will select Max Clare, tight end out of Ohio State. Jatavian Sanders has been not good. We got McMillan obviously helping us out quite a bit. Jalen Coker has actually been quite good in the slot. Decent offensive line. I was contemplating running back, but the tight end is such a problem that's a significantly bigger need. So see if we can finally get this thing up and running here. Bryce Young has been quite a bit better the last 2 years than he was in his rookie year, so we hopefully have something to work with there. Next up is the Green Bay Packers. Packers have just 1 pick prior to the 3rd round, and that pick was Caleb Banks, defensive tackle out of Florida. Another guy that's been kind of floating around for a while. Some teams needed close to help, but not exactly this. Packers, however, do have this need, and that is center. Thanks to a lot of teams not needing this as desperately, maybe guard help or whatever, Jake Slaughter, offensive center out of Florida, is going to fall right into our lap, so that actually worked out quite perfect. Plenty of other directions to consider. Devin Moore, the cornerback out of Florida. Julian Neal, another cornerback. Actually, several corners coming up here if you're in the need. But, again, Jake Slaughter is the best value right now. Best player. Massive need. No problems with that whatsoever. Pittsburgh Steelers are back on the clock with their 2nd pick. As a quick recap, they've drafted, DT and cornerback, defensive tackle and corner. And then with our 1st pick, we had the Pittsburgh Steelers selecting a wide receiver. That's right, trying to get Rodgers some help finally. And I tell you what, we're going to get him a little bit more help. This time, not via wide receiver. We are going to actually grab Isaiah World, offensive tackle out of Oregon. I think it's time to maybe give up on the Broderick Jones experiment. It's been 3 years as a number 14 overall selection, and he's just been terrible for 3 years. And whether it's Rodgers or the guy we draft next year or later this year, whatever, we're going to need a better left tackle than that. For the Chargers, we have Tim Weaver. he made a pretty big trade back, so we'll kind of just ignore that and say that they got an edge rusher with their first pick and then a safety, Dylan Thieneman, with the pick 55. So edge and safety, and man, oh man, is this offensive line bad. I don't think we really have much of a choice here. We'll be selecting Sam Hecht, offensive line, Kansas State. It literally doesn't matter where on the interior he ends up playing. Zion Johnson at left guard is bad. Bradley Bozeman at center is horrible and 31. And then Mekhi Becton had a 37 PFF grade and is likely to be moving on. So horrible, horrible interior offensive line. And then final pick before this break here is Miami. Miami will be making their second selection. So their first picks, and they did trades again. I think we had them taking the tackle and guard, so 2 offensive linemen. And then with our pick, we had them taking edge rusher, Romello Height. Next up, we're going to get him some wide receiver help here, coming by way of Ted Hurst, wide receiver, Georgia State. We got Jalen Waddle. Outside of that, we don't have much, and that includes tight end. Darren Waller had he graded out well. He didn't play very much, and he's 33. We got a solid running back, and that's about it. So Miami will have another pick, as will Pittsburgh, but it's actually mostly duplicates on the other side. But we'll take a break, and we'll be right back. All right, at pick 88, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars going to be making another selection. We had them taking a safety the first time around, and their only other pick was D'Angelo Pons. So we got cornerback and we got safety, so we got the DBs pretty well taken care of. Things are not exactly falling the best. I think what we need are some interior guys on both sides of the offensive line here. And a lot of those guys have gone already, leaving us with our best available option of Dante Corleone, defensive tackle, Cincinnati. Next up, we have the Chicago Bears making their first pick, coming by way of Andy Charles in the Facebook group. He had a couple trades, but again, focusing on defensive line, edge rusher first, and then the most popular man in the world, Lee Hunter, defensive tackle out of Texas Tech. I think I'm going to stick with defense. I definitely could make the argument for corner. I know Bears fans would lose their mind because they think they have an elite corner group, so I'll probably just leave that alone. Plus, a million teams are going to need corner more so than this other position. I think the biggest argument is Kevin Byard, assuming he's sticking around, is 32 years old, so he won't be around for very much longer. And so the Chicago Bears will select Zakee Wheatley, safety out of Penn State, which puts Miami right back on the clock. Again, they took a bunch of offensive linemen. Then we went with edge rusher Romello Height and then wide receiver Ted Hurst. I think Miami's going to swoop in and take that cornerback that the Chicago Bears did not in Devin Moore, cornerback out of Florida. Guy gets to stay home in Florida. Again, Rasul Douglas, not probably going to be sticking around for very much longer. And outside of that, they just don't have a ton going on. Jack Jones is not doing much. Kader Kohu is not doing much. So Devin Moore is going to come in and probably start immediately. Buffalo Bills have picks 26 and 60. Again, mock draft with a million different trades, but let's just say it's wide receiver and then Genesis Smith safety at pick 60. I think Buffalo needs a little bit of help on the interior of that defense, and I'm not talking about the defensive line. The linebacker situation is getting quite dire. Shaq Thompson is a decent linebacker, but he's 32 years old. Terrell Bernard, third-round pick, has been terrible, and Matt Milano hasn't been really a good guy since 2022. He was injured in 2023. He's now going on 31 and has had a last 2 years that have been quite terrible, so I think he's pretty well cooked. So the Buffalo Bills will select Kyle Lewis, linebacker out of Pittsburgh. Next up is the San Francisco 49ers with picks 27 and 58. Jim Burchill, again, did some trading around, but let's say the first pick was an edge rusher. Second pick, linebacker Josiah Trotter. Immediately, defensive tackle stands out as a massive need. Looking how far we'd have to reach, again, with Corleone already gone, you'd have to go all the way out to 114. That just seems like a incredible reach from 92. I think a better value would be to go and grab a cornerback who we also desperately need, but this is actually a much better value, and that's Julian Neal, cornerback out of Arkansas, who's currently consensus 89. Next up is the Rams, who are in a really solid position because not only do they have their normal picks of 29 and 61, but they have the Falcons' number 13 pick overall. And so we've got them selecting Mansour Delane, cornerback, with their first pick, followed by Ihanachor at 29. Notice how some of these are unbelievably popular prospects that just get picked over and over and over again. Followed by Logan Jones, the offensive center, at pick 93. Oh, and their second round pick is Chris Bell. So, wow. Cornerback, tackle, wide receiver, and center. Well, it's another team that's just completely loaded with talent, and so that affords us the ability to take advantage of some luxuries here. One of those luxuries being we can double down at a position already. So Mansour Delane was our pick at 13. I think we could use a couple different corners. Not that any of them are terrible, but you've got a couple middle-of-the-road guys, so why not bring in some additional? Traden Stukes, cornerback out of Arizona, is probably our best option. The only other direction that I could go would be to probably double down at wide receiver. There's a million wide receivers available. There is not a ton else that makes sense for the Rams. Denver mock draft done again by Mr. Weaver. Dude just ran through all the teams, I guess. At 30, Caden McDonald, and 62, Chris Brazzell. So defensive tackle and wide receiver for the Denver Broncos. I think we're going to continue to build in the trenches a little bit. Nick Benito is a solid pass rusher. We're going to try to get a little bit of help on the other side with Malachi Lawrence, edge rusher, UCF, USC. What am I talking about? For the New England Patriots, we have a mock by Dominic Fisher. He's got the Patriots taking Anthony Hill Jr. at pick 31 and then Joshua Josephs at 63. So linebacker, then edge rusher. I think the best option here, there's nothing that's a wonderful value, but it's probably the exact right pick. The New England Patriots will select Logan Jones, offensive center out of Iowa. They need to replace Garrett Bradbury. That's not a thing that's going to work out very well. Then we have the final pick before we get to the compensatory picks, and that is the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. They only have 4 picks in the draft, but it's picks in the first, second, third round, and then 1 6th-round pick, and they're done. So they're definitely a trade-back candidate, although they're picking at 32. So we'll see how that pans out. But with their first 2 picks, they selected Jennings Dunker and D'Angelo Pons, so interior offensive line and corner. Corner being a very popular pick for them. Interior offensive line likewise. Another interior guy is not a terrible option, but there's just nobody available. So I think I would look in a different direction. Obviously, we have one of the best wide receivers in the game. However, Cooper Kupp is 33 years old, and outside of that, we got Rashid Shaheed. So we will draft Deion Burks, wide receiver out of Oklahoma. Then we have our 4 compensatory picks. The top compensatory pick will go to the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings, again, had Mansour Delane and Lee Hunter to start off. Then on top of that, we selected for them running back Jonah Coleman. I think although the guy's a pretty big name, he's going to be 29, which is not super old, but he just has not been a super dominant guy. He peaked in 2023, took a step back in 2024, took a massive step back in 2025. Whether that's the quarterback or not, I don't know. But one of the better value guys left available. And wide receiver is also a question for me, but I figure this will kind of help out in that regard. Hawkinson is the guy we're going to be looking to add to / replace over time. And so we're going to select Justin Jolly, tight end out of North Carolina State. Then we've got the Philadelphia Eagles back on the clock. We had them picking all the way back at pick 68, where we took Caleb Tiernan, the offensive tackle, to eventually replace Lane Johnson. Again, a team that's pretty solidly built, but one of the weaker areas, I would say, is the safety group. In the second round, they did take Andrew Makuba last year. He did not have a very good rookie year, and then after that, they got Reed Blankenship, who started off solid but has gotten worse every year. He went from a 79 to a 73 to a 70 to a 43 this past year. It's possible they both bounce back and we don't necessarily need this. It's also possible that Makuba stays bad, Blankenship stays bad, and we need safeties desperately. So I'm going to have the Eagles taking Bud Clark, safety out of TCU. Pittsburgh back on the clock once again. Had them taking, if you remember, the heavy defense before they got in here. Then we had them taking a wide receiver and then a tackle to help Rodgers. But we are going to turn back to the defense because they don't have any good linebackers at all on this team, and they need as much help there as they can get. So the Pittsburgh Steelers will select Deontay Lawson, linebacker out of Alabama. And finally, the Jacksonville Jaguars, again, for the third time on the clock in this round, they selected a safety, Kamari Ramsey. We had them taking defensive tackle Dante Corleone, and now they get the final pick at pick 100. And again, a team that there's really no wrong answer here. But I think with the talk about Hunter that's Travis Hunter primarily moving over to cornerback, leads me wanting to add a little bit over there. With, Jacoby Myers is fine. Brian Thomas did not have a very good second year last year. And so with the final pick at pick 100, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Brennan Thompson, wide receiver, Mississippi State. Okay, again, kind of planned on going in a different direction, but it just wasn't really going to work. I haven't really checked as we've been doing this. I've had all my screens with all the different notes and everything else up to be able to do the mock, so I don't know what all's going on over there, but the plan will be for tomorrow to do some more news and notes about what's going on over at the Combine. Appreciate all you guys. Make sure to join the Facebook group. Drop your mock drafts over there. I know the majority of you listening are Packer fans. We had basically 0 Packer fans. I was shocked to see that because I know that group used to have a bunch of Packers mocks. 0. 30,000 people. I'm talking about in 2026. Couldn't find a single Packers mock. A lot of first-round mock drafts, which of course don't have the Packers either. A couple first, second, thirds, which include the Packers. But no just 7-round mocks. So there were a handful of teams that just didn't have any. There's a handful of teams that had 1 billion. It's funny to see. So one of the things I've noticed about the mock draft stuff, and this goes back, what was it, 7 years ago when I first started my YouTube channel, and it initially was an NFL Draft YouTube channel. The absolute biggest was always Dallas because they have such a big audience. But I think the biggest mock draft or draft community are Cleveland Browns fans. And I'm guessing the reason is because Cleveland has always been so bad that it's just been a big tradition for them for a long time is to get excited about the NFL draft. So Dallas Cowboys fans are just massive everywhere. Cleveland fans, a bunch of Chiefs mocks, a bunch of New England mocks. Some teams are just massively overrepresented. Some are massively underrepresented. So I just want to make sure that every single fan base can get in there and start dropping some mock drafts and whatnot. But anywho, I will talk to you all tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.